Back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kisakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Monday night / evening with a quarter to the top of the hour of 11 p.m. when we usually or officially should be here. But then I realized to myself, oftentimes I've fumbled it, come late, apologized, and you guys have indulged me. So why not indulge you with an early cameo? Anyways, so that we can get into the conversation regarding football. I'll be glad for those of you that will join us, and I'm grateful for those that were part of the morning broadcast. I hope that you will enjoy the show. I hope you will find it quite fruitful. I can see Pedri is already showing excitement with Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante having already landed in Spain to complete his medicals as a new Barcelona player. And he will be donning the shirt number 16, which is his favorite shirt. There's been a swap there. I think, is it Dani Olmo that is going to shift to shirt 7 to allow Rodri take on his shirt over shirt 16. So, and then Joao Cancelo from Al Hilal, that's all also agreed. And it looks like Barcelona are quite, they are quite getting everything right within the transfer window. Maybe, just maybe, we can discuss them in the grand scheme of things in regards to their overall preparation for next season. I still have just two reservations about their striking force in terms of that central player. I know with their system and how they play, they can always find the solutions. It's not that they will struggle to find the goals, but you're always going to need somebody in there. Now, of course, they could look to utilize Karim Adeyemi. They could look to utilize Anthony Gordon in that role. But in the grand scheme of things, I know for a fact that they need somebody there. And that's why we'll be discussing all summer about their pursuit of Julian Alvarez, although it is yet to materialize. And you remember the last time we discussed the topic, my question was, at what point do Barcelona allow themselves to move on to other targets, having perhaps conceived it beyond a reasonable doubt that maybe it's just not a deal that is going to happen, no matter how badly they would want to see it happen. Sometimes it's just that you ought to come to terms with it as soon as possible. Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyways, so we'll be discussing all that and more in this broadcast, but you'll allow me start with the topic of Barcelona now that Pedri has introduced it. For those of you that care to remember, Barcelona and Real Madrid, or in the context of the Spanish La Liga, is not a topic that we often ignore because close on to, actually, just maybe close on to over a week ago, we did put out that exclusive video discussing Real Madrid and Barcelona in the context of Spanish La Liga, who is more prepared. Will Real Madrid be able to dethrone Barcelona? Hi, Reluctant Gamer. Good to have you. The only member we have on this channel. Maximum respect to you, Reluctant Gamer. Thank you for the continued love and support. So we did that exclusive. Hi, Mariam. You say, where's your notebook? Mariam is always asking about my notebook. Mariam, careful not to digress yourself into another Raymond Kangoma, but it's always somewhere on the sidelines, just in case I need a reflection or two about what I could have noted earlier along the pathway. But although just today has not been one of those days because of some lengthy engagements, but I hope you're doing good. Adeyemi has the number 14. Rodri will take 16, Anthony Gordon 17, and Dani Olmo will be taking on the shirt number 20. Then Fermin Lopez, who is the one that is going to take the shirt number 7. All right, thank you so much for that much appreciated update when it comes to the Barcelona squad numbers. For those of you that care to know or are new on the channel, Pedri is an adherent Barcelona fan who joins us every now and then from Spain, and he gives us deeper insights into the Barcelona world beyond what we may maybe know casually or otherwise. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. The last time we had a disagreement, it ended with him spending over a month away simply because of a disagreement over their Champions League performance. But that is the nature of exchanging ideas and having topics discussed. Sometimes you just don't see eye to eye when it comes to the overall, view of things. But that is the nature of life. Anyways, so to the topic of Barcelona, and this is something that it was such a nice month without Mr. Tribe. I continue to learn that people behave in different ways when you disagree with them. But it is something that I continue to learn and see how to deal with it. Unfortunately, in my line of work, disagreements in terms of opinions with the people that I interact with are oftentimes inevitable because we are, at the end of the day, different minds look at things differently. Oftentimes, the beauty of it is that we agree, but sometimes we'll disagree. And I oftentimes tell people when we're having these discussions that I'm not a pastor who is before a congregation preaching and they ought not to be opposed. So when somebody comes with a contrary view, I'll take it at heart. So, Robert, write my name in the notebook. Mariam, your name is already written in the notebook as the only Football Tribe UG fan from Egypt. Yes, from the land of the pyramids. Anyways, the topic is Barcelona for now. So Barcelona have really, really done themselves proud in as far as this transfer window is concerned. First and foremost, bringing in a player like Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante is quite the show of intent. We were discussing this earlier and are saying, we are speaking in the context of the length of contracts that were being dished out to players that had crossed the age of 30 in years gone by. You take yourself back to the early 2000s and Sir Arsene Charles Wenger, sorry, not Sir, Arsene Charles Wenger at Arsenal was quite culpable of this. Every time a player clocked 30, he would hand him a one-year contract. If that 1 year elapsed, he would look to extend it by another year and eventually see them off. It was quite often rare, if you are not a goalkeeper, to last at his team beyond the age of 33. It was simply the sort of overall acceptance within Premier League football at the time that players who clocked 30 were not being given extended or extensive contracts. That was the nature of it. As we speak today, that narrative has shifted. Why? Because players have begun to show that you can play really, really well beyond the age of 30, beyond just the age of 30, 31, 32, that you can still cut it even when you're 35, depending on how well you look after yourself, depending on how competitive you are as an individual. And then that very conversation takes me back to AC Milan in 2011 when they allowed to part ways with Andrea Pirlo, thinking that he had approached the evening of his career. Then he went on to Juventus, and for 4 solid years between 2011 and 2015, he was quite a masterstroke of a player in that Juventus midfield that was under the charges of Antonio Conte. He was quite a game. He was quite a revelation. He almost felt like they had signed a 26-year-old Andrea Pirlo, and yet he had already clocked 30. So in that sort of aspect and respect is how you have to look at it. Now, how does that tie to our discussion about Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante? Because according to Fabrizio Romano, he is set to put pen to paper on a 4-year contract. Remember, he's already 30. So in a never seen before kind of thing, you're going to experience this kind of thing more routinely. We have seen it with players like Virgil van Dijk. We've seen it with the likes of Mohamed Salah. We've seen it with Lionel Messi, who is currently 39. We've seen it with Cristiano Ronaldo, who is now 41. We've seen it with the likes of Luka Modric at Real Madrid. We saw it with the likes of Toni Kroos. It's a growing trend of phenomena that players who are 29, 30 are getting 4-year contracts, 3-year contracts. That's a huge shift in terms of how players are being looked at, even when they reach that age profile. Because forget the value for the money for which Barcelona have agreed to pay, which, by the way, I believe is quite a steal. First of all, I've said this. He comes with the leadership. He comes with the experience. He comes with the skill set. He's almost, I believe, he's going to fit in that Barcelona side, like like a pair of gloves would fit on a pair of hands. Why? Because he's well familiarized with Spanish football. That's where he was, at Atletico de Madrid in 2019 before joining Manchester City. So he's a Spanish national team captain. But the way the Spanish national team play overall in terms of tic-tac football is not quite any different from what Barcelona do play with, because Barcelona are also element of that. What may differ is maybe the high defensive line, a few minor details here and there. So they get themselves a brilliant player, one with a lot of proven experience, and that is, I believe, is going to really, really deliver for them. Now, he goes into a very young midfield of Pedri, Gavi, Marc Beno, Marc Casado, and all those youngsters that could be looking to come through that have a lot to learn from him. And that circle is going to even be a close-knit circle as Spain build their catalyst to the Euros 2028, which I believe by the end of this year will begin to look like they are around the corner, because then we are only 2 years away from it at the moment. So you must look at it in all those aspects. And I mean, to get a Ballon d'Or winner, to get a World Cup winner, a Euro winner, a Champions League winner, a 4-time Premier League champion at the price of 76.5 million euros is almost a steal. Really, only 60 million euros of that is guaranteed, whereas the add-ons are quite easily achievable. You can still understand, because I'm thinking maybe many of them are tied to Champions League qualification. Probably if Barcelona win the Spanish La Liga, if they make it to the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League, if he makes this number of appearances, those kinds of things. Usually when they talk about easily achievable add-ons, those are the ones we're talking about. We're not talking about Rodri possibly winning the Ballon d'Or again. That's not what we're talking about. But yeah, indeed. So in getting Rodri, in getting Anthony Gordon, first of all, Anthony Gordon was a bit of a shocker for me. It's not the kind of signing that I envisioned Barcelona were going to make, but they did it anyway. But I did say that whether you question it or you like it or otherwise, you must appreciate the fact that Anthony Gordon was a player that was being scouted by Bayern Munich, by Liverpool, by Arsenal, and then Barcelona. It is not a coincidence that all those gigantic clubs were looking at him as a potential good player. So you must appreciate him, that maybe Barcelona beat their opponents to the punch. Then you look at Karim Adeyemi, again, another one that is a bit of a shocker. Maybe just not to me, but even Barcelona fans. They must have been thinking to themselves, Karim Adeyemi, really? I did not see that coming. Why? Because we came into the summer hoping, expecting, anticipating that maybe one of the priorities for Barcelona was going to go out there and get a centre-back. Has it been the case? No. Has it been the case? No. Why? Because they want to play majority of their football in midfield and the opponent serve. So, and it's not to say they have bad defenders, by the way. It's usually, I say, Barcelona have good defenders. They may not be like a top tier in terms of the elitist of defenders, but they are oftentimes good defenders. It is the kind of system within which they play that sometimes causes them to get exposed, and so that's a structural thing, But I remember we came from the back end of last season and were discussing about the possibility of Barcelona signing Bastoni from Inter Milan. Somehow that one seemed to vanish through thin air. Anyways, guys, allow me to get to some of your comments. I've seen you guys, I don't know, trying to pick on each other. Anyways, okay. Mariam Sush already right next to me. Muhammad Salah, Omar Mamouche, Hamza Adele Karim, and Haitham Hassan, because they are also Egypt. Okay, be quiet. We want to focus. What's wrong with Pedri? Pedri is just like that. Do not get rage baited by him. It's just like that. Do not get rage baited by him. He will pick on you for the fun of it without any intent to ridicule. You just have to understand him. Anyway, I for one do understand him. So I know Mohamed Salah is a failed player, but hey, Moroccan, I'm from Spain, but hey, Moroccan, Mr. Tribe, tell Mariam that that's it for them. Oh, Robert, let me see my name, please. Given my handwriting has such small letters, you wouldn't be able to see it, even if I showed it to you, from a distance. You know, Mariam, and by the way, it's in this old notebook. It's in this old notebook. So there are two. There's two of them. There's the old one and the new one. Remember, you joined the forum, I think sometime early on this year. So be rest assured you're there. I'll see them. Believe me, please. Okay, allow me show you tomorrow. Because I need to look up the exact page on which that name is. But I know I wrote a full set of names. For me, my intention was to give people shout outs to them for their contribution towards this channel. And it's a bit of a long list. Let me see, maybe to satisfy your curiosity, if I can quickly find it. But, oh, come on, it's not there. Anyways, as we carry on, let me see. Ademi is a backup for Lamine Yamal. That's true. I can write so many languages. It's not really about the language in which your name is written. You see, somewhere here, as we have jotted majority of those names, there's people like Bash, London, Vibes, Billionaire, Pedri, Becky, Viola, United Road 10, among others. All in there, some regulars and some semi-irregulars on the channel. So anyways, okay. Your notebook is amazing and iconic. Thank you. So anyways, Raymond says, Ahmad Derek done an officially Newcastle player today, and Nkunku, Bagvel should sign. Raymond Kangumba, I'll be a little cautious about Christopher Nkunku. He's been in the Premier League before and he's failed to hack it at Chelsea. So I do not know what would persuade Newcastle into thinking that he's going to hack it when he joins them. I'm one who would have reservations in that spirit when it comes to Christopher Nkunku. But thank you so much for the Newcastle update. Anyways, okay, continuing with the discussion. So for Barcelona, I mean, they've done some really, really good signings. My reservations, like I said, I would look at them in a whole different spirit mode, as a different beast, if they can get that sort of, striker, if they can get maybe one center back. It wouldn't be the end of the world for them if they do not end up getting either of them, but I know deep down, even they know just as much as anybody else that they need somebody in those positions. Okay, I don't think Mariam has ever seen a notebook before. Really? Come on. She's been to class before, so she knows what a notebook is. She just has an appreciation of my notebook. I know you do not share the same sentiments, Pedri, but take heart, kindly. You say, Ray, it's not your time. And then somebody called, is it Lean? I don't know if I miss, is it Lee? You say, hey brother, how are you? I'm doing all right. How about yourself? It's good to have you on the channel. I hope you're doing yourself well. Anyways, so that's Barcelona for you. Now, with the acquisition of Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante, I think Real Madrid are going to look at Barcelona as a different animal altogether, because he single-handedly is the kind of player that is capable of winning you a fixture, by just dominating in midfield. I can't look at Mr. Tribe. You're so... So, relax, Pedri, relax. So, Barcelona have already been dominating Real Madrid without having some of these players. Now, obviously, along the way, they've lost some of those players that have been making them a better team. You've lost Marcus Rashford, made you a better team last season, in my humble opinion. But in him, you have a good replacement in Anthony Gordon You've lost Robert Lewandowski. That's why I'm thinking Barcelona needs somebody there. Whether he's going to be a starter or a support player, I just feel that you need somebody in there because you can never know what could happen with injuries. You could maybe look to say we'll have a makeshift force 9 in Anthony Gordon, on another day Karim Adeyemi, but they could be out because of injury. We've seen last season what happened to Rafinha. He wasn't at absolute best because of injuries. He struggled with that hamstring issue and something like that. So at the end of the day, you need somebody. Either you're bringing in a backup or that main target man. Then in terms of their backline, of course, Andreas Christensen, I believe he's recovered fully enough from his injury. Of course, you have Gerard Martin. You have Pau Kubasi, quite an excellent young talent, huge prospect. If he continues with that sort of trajectory, the likes of Dean Howson will be looking at him he will be looking at them. Pau Kubasi, will be looking at them in the rear view mirror to say, come on, guys, what's happening to you guys? So really, really good. So those two, if that's the core of the starting, then you need a bit of support. Because the one thing I know about young players, no matter how good they look, depending on what position they play, once in a while, they are bound to cost you. They're going to make a costly mistake that will cost you points. So I'll leave that discussion at that as far as Barcelona concerned. Pedri, please, if you find the time, feel free to go over to the channel and see that video, exclusive video that we did. And the question that we were posing, the topic is Spanish La Liga. Will Real Madrid dethrone Barcelona? And the video of it's been watched by a good chunk of people in comparison to some of our other videos, which is a very, very positive thing. So please, if you find the time, endeavor to do so. Otherwise, thank you for all your input on that discussion about Rodri. Now, let's look at the team where he's just crossed over from at Manchester City, because according to Sami Mokbel of BBC Sport, Manchester City are in advanced talks to sign Ayyoub Bouaddi, the 19-year-old Moroccan international. Some of us who do not consume a lot of French football in terms of watching the league week in, week out, you must have learned or appreciated Ayyoub Bouaddi at the World Cup, particularly with that first display versus Brazil in their game week, their match day one, in that 1-1 draw between Morocco and Brazil. He was quite a standout performer. He showed a certain level that perhaps many of us had not seen. Pedri says Bouaddi is so good. Now, Robert Ayyoub Bouaddi is a fantastic player. Now, he's such a huge prospect. He's shown signs of brilliancy. Whether he can continue on the same path or trajectory, that remains to be seen. Now, I do not know, in the perspective of Manchester City, how their interpretation of the player they are trying to sign is, because I don't know if they are looking at him as themselves getting hands on a really, really good prospect that could turn out better than many of us think, or they are looking at him as an immediate Rodrigo Hernandez, Cascante replacement. If that is the spirit for the latter through which they are looking at him, they could sell themselves short. Like I've said before, replacing great players is never easy. Today, we're having a discussion. Okay, Lara says, hello, how are you? I'm good, Lara. Good to have you back. I think this is the second time I'm seeing you on the channel. It's much appreciated to have you back. Then Gamo says, I think City need more than just Bouaddi. After watching City yesterday, I don't necessarily think it's just about Bouaddi or their midfield. It's about how they click as a group of players. But because when it comes to the figures, the bodies, they have the group of players. I already told him you should be quicker next time. Okay. So when you look at I was saying about the difficulty in replacing great players. Today, we were having that bit of a discussion in a TikTok forum, and somebody was asking, how do Manchester City replace Rodri? It is easy to replace a player with another figure or with a player that plays in the same role. But pound for pound, replacing one great player with another great player is one of the hardest things a team can ever try to do. Now, in that, Rennes were having that discussion. I went back and gave them the example that when Manchester United eventually lost Michael Carrick and Paul Scholes, they really, really struggled. Up to until this day, I do not sufficiently think that they've ever found those perfect replacements in those positions. That's why, at the age of 29, they latched onto Yuri Tillemans. He's good, but is he as good as Paul Scholes? No, that's not it. So, one of the teams that I saw successfully trying to replace players, always, or often, at least, back in the in years gone by, Atletico Madrid had a knack of finding good strikers. When they lost Diego Forlan, they lost Fernando Torres, they lost Sergio Kun Aguero, they lost Diego Costa. Now, every time they lost that big name striker, they were able to replace. I do not remember the chronological order, but I think it could have been in this respect. When Diego Forlan Coranzo leaves, Thingy comes in, Sergio Kun Aguero. Fernando Torres. When Fernando Torres comes and he goes to Liverpool, they bring Sergio Kun Aguero. When Sergio Kun Aguero leaves, they bring in Diego Costa. And then I can see Gam is reminding me of Radamel Falcao Garcia Zarate. How could I forget? The guy that scored a brace, I think, in the UEFA Europa League final of, was it 2010 when they played Fulham? Let me see. Yeah, 2010 they played Fulham. And then, no, it wasn't 2010. I think it was 2012 when they played Athletic Bilbao. The Athletic Bilbao that had that was under the charges of Marcelo Bielsa, that had players like Ika Munain, Ander Herrera, I think he was called Xavi Martinez, the guy that ended up playing at Bayern Munich. It had Fernando Llorente, that group of players that gave Sir Alex Ferguson quite the shivers when they had dropped off from the UEFA Champions League into the UEFA Europa League. So for those of you that remember that, okay. So yeah, they have always been good at replacing those players. Then also you could go to Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund, for a given period of time, they had this almost a revolving conveyor belt of signing good players. Really, they lost big players. Robert Lewandowski was leaving, Mario Götze was leaving, Ousmane Dembele were leaving, but they often found good replacements. But oftentimes, it's really, really difficult. So the point I'm trying to make is that Manchester City, no matter how hard they try, they are not going to find another Rodri in the market. But they will find a player that can suitably play in that midfield. Not to the extent of Rodri, but can be almost as good. Almost as good. You know when you go to buy a luxury car and you find that you can't afford a Mercedes-Benz, you may end up with an Audi or you may end up with a Lexus. So not as good as a Mercedes-Benz, but just as good, kind of, to communicate the luxury that you want. So that's the point I'm trying to drive home. So Man City are in pursuit of Ayyoub Bouaddi, who apparently is valued at 100 million euros. Now, I cannot stress enough how price tags or prices of players or the value of players has been overly exaggerated in the current transfer window. We have seen it from the start of the transfer window. Manchester City literally opened this can of worms when they signed Elliot Anderson for £160 million. Chelsea gave us an extended card in signing Morgan Rogers for £1 million more than that. And now we have seen Yan Diomande go to Real Madrid for more, So when you look at players like Ayyoub Bouaddi are coming in at around of £85.6 million, it's just going with the trend, going with an already set precedent. Manchester City is one of those clubs that oftentimes negotiate really, really well, by the way, for players. It's not every day that you think of Manchester City that they have overpaid for a player. They tend to buy players quite expensively, but oftentimes you do not think of it as overpaying. If you were to think about them overpaying, maybe you'd look at a player like Jack Grealish. But when you go to their signing of Riyad Mahrez, the likes of Omar Mamouche, Kushanov, Victor Reis, Anton Semenyo, Jeremy Doku, Brad Erling Haaland, you almost feel like, yeah, because Haaland came in for about what, £52 million, And okay, that had to do with the conditions in his contract, but obviously they spent more in terms of commissions and agents, things like that. But oftentimes you do not feel that they are bringing in every player of 100 million euros, 100 million euros, just like Chelsea have literally made us accustomed to it, because Chelsea now have about 4 players that have cost them around that ballpark. You have Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, Morgan Rogers, and you have what's his name, Mukalo Modric. Not quite at 100, but almost close to that kind of ballpark of a figure. So they've literally made it routine. Bayern Munich, big as they are, Harry Kane is the only 100 million euro player they have. All the others, no. Go to Barcelona. They've gone out of that era of Anthony Griezmann and Filipe Coutinho and what's his name, Ousmane Dembele. When they splashed the cash on all those players, they seem to have walked out of that sort of phase, and they've been signing players for relatively good amounts. They've not been exploring the markets to the extent, because they have La Masia that keeps channeling out good talents. But that's how you should look at it. So I do not believe Ayyoub Bouaddi is worth 100 million euros, not by a long shot. But just look at it in comparison. Matthias Fernandes from West Ham cost Tottenham Hotspurs 85 million pounds. So the two players, when you put them on the weighing scale, beyond this one being 21 and having 2 seasons, maybe 2 seasons or more of Premier League experience, there's not much difference between the two players. One is 21, the other is 18. So you can understand why the figures are in the same region of a ballpark. Okay, Al Ahly and Barcelona will play on Wednesday. Will you be watching, Robert? Oh, thank you for bringing that to my awareness. I wasn't really aware of that. I do not know what time the game will be, but if I can find time to catch up on it, I'll be interested in seeing how how the Egyptians fare against the Catalans. Sumite, is that how you pronounce the name? Or Gore? My man, how are you? I'm doing well. Please forgive me if I mispronounced the name. 100 million euros for a teenager, not Yamal, is too much. Exactly. You have to be as good as Lamine Yamal. You have to be as good as who? I'm trying to look for the other teenagers that are just as good, and it's only Lamine Yamal that comes to mind. You have to be that. You say it will be 9 o'clock Egyptian time, evening. Okay. Maybe I'll endeavor to try and look out for it, if possible, if I'm not preoccupied by anything else. So when it comes to teenagers, okay, let's look at players that below 24 years of age that are worth that money. Look around. There's not many players. There's not many players. Obviously, for us to justify those sort of price tags, we will simply boil it down to the current trends. Whether you're looking to sign a Desiree Doué, who is 20 now, Bradley Bacola soon turning 24. All those young talents that you may think are really huge prospects. There's not so many of them that you're going to look at and say, that's the kind of player that is worth 100 million euros. Even Jamal Musiala, a player that I really love, present day, based on the last 2 campaigns that he's played, he's not worth 100 million euros. He was, maybe when he was just coming through, he felt that he was that sort of special talent, but injuries have sort of hindered his progress and upward trajectory, that you feel he's no longer worth that. So you say Hamza Abdel Karim is a teenager and a very good player. Yes, I'm not saying they are not good players. There are so many very good young players, but them being worth 100 million euros, that's a whole different story. That's a whole different story. You must be some form of special talent for you to be worth that. Because now, obviously, coming at that price tag, you have because if we are buying you at 100 million euros, that means in 3 to 4 years' time, or even 5, we can sell you for 150. So we would have made a profit, or even if it is 140. But also, beyond making a profit on your sale, you must be that budding gem of a talent that is going to build their brand and be of commercial value. Because, guys, these players get paid. Therefore, they must command a certain commercial value. Like Lamine Yamal, I'm sure every season now that starts, when Barcelona put out their new kits for the new season, there's a lot of young Barcelona fans that are looking to don the Lamine Yamal shirt. That's the commercial value I'm talking about. You know, when Barcelona is sitting in boardrooms to discuss commercial deals with teams, they're saying, look, we have quite one of the faces of the Spanish La Liga in Lamine Yamal. That's what they're telling, these advertisers, to get better deals. So you must be in that ballpark. When you go to Real Madrid, you know what Real Madrid is telling people? Look, we have Kylian Mbappe, we have Vinicius Junior, we have Jude Bellingham. These are all big stars. So they have that commercial value. They command it, in different measures and respects. So you must have that bit of an element. Thanks for the show, my brother. Good evening, Nando. How are you doing? Hope you're doing okay. I came onto the forum for our discussion on the other side at a time when you had retired yourself to other duties before you decided to cut our conversation short. But thank you for the continued love and support, guys. Okay, now, so Ayyoub Bouaddi is closed, but according to the same BBC Sport, Manchester City retain interest in Enzo Fernandez, even if they were to sign Ayyoub Bouaddi. Remember, Manchester City have just sold 2 players in Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante for 60 million euros, guaranteed fees. Forget the add-ons for a moment. They've sold Tijan Riendas to the Saudi Pro League for 61 million euros to, I think, Al Qadash. So that's a total of 121 million euros. That means they have the money to spend, because forget not that Manchester City, until this point, other than signing Elliot Anderson and the goalkeeper, there's that goalkeeper, he's called Rudy, that they've just brought in as a backup goalkeeper. They've not made too many buys. So, and yet we know that Manchester City is one of those teams that really, really extensively explore the market. They've made some player sales, obviously, to bring in some money. And among the player sales, obviously, they also signed Jeremy Monga from Leicester City, arguably the most expensive youngster in terms of an academy player, for £10 million. Arsenal decided to opt out of that deal. They were only offering £6 million. We'll get to see if the kid is as good as advertised. Anyways, so they've had some outgoings. Fenerbahce took Nathan Ake. James Trafford has gone to Leeds. But majority of their players have gone on free transfers. John Stones, Bernardo Silva, and a couple of others. Manela Kanji went to Inter Milan for about 11 million euros. I think about 15, because that was the option to buy. About 15 million euros. So anyways, they've had some outgoings, so they have gaps within the squad to fill. If you looked at their right back yesterday, where Kushanov played, reports are suggesting that Barcelona could explore the market once again for a right back, and they could target Malo Gusto from Chelsea. Now, Chelsea say Malo Gusto is worth £75 million. I totally disagree, a million times disagree. But if that is the price tag that they pressed on him, we'll see if Manchester City agree with Chelsea on his valuation. But I do not think he should be worth that. Then, however, if Man City were to acquire Ayyoub Bouaddi and Enzo Fernandez, it would almost sound unthinkable that they would spend 75 on Malo Gusto. Why? Because no matter how much Man City spend, never have we seen them go and spend 400 million euros in a single transfer window. Oftentimes, they do not operate in that manner. It's the kind of deal that they would maybe wait and do it in January, kind of thing, So, but let's wait and see. They are Man City. Probably they could do it and get away with it. I mean, we've been waiting for the 115 charges in like forever. And Nando says, let them go for Enzo Fernandez. I think some Chelsea fans are tired of this ping pong game of, is he going, is he staying, that and this. But with that deadline expunged of Friday, it may take some bit of persuading for Manchester City to raise their offer for him. Amati Sunday says, what I know, City will pay 150 to Chelsea out Fali. Okay. I bet Chelsea should not sell Malo Gusto. That's from Nando. By the way, Nando is a Chelsea fan, and he also has a YouTube channel. If there's any one of you out there that is familiar with the local language, Luganda, yeah, you can go on there and subscribe. That's the language in which he does his content. Go and support another budding content creator. Gamo says Man City can do it. They are panicking now. Okay, you send us into that territory. But so let's wait and see what they will do. Because at right back, remember, they may need somebody there, but they're also not desperate because you have a Matas Nunes and then Kushano. Those are the two players that can play for you right back. In terms of their left back, Ryan Atnori and Nico Riley. Centre back, you have a Joshko Vadiol who can also play at left back. You have Mark Kehi, you have your Kushanov, you have your Ruben Diaz. So kind of, I don't think they are panicking. So, and I don't think they're going to panic because of yesterday's result. Like I said, yesterday's result felt more of like Man City not being ready in terms of their overall fitness, in terms of their overall chemistry for the new season, as opposed to them just being a bad team entirely to say that they do not have the right players. That's what it felt like. It's almost like you beating Usain Bolt to a race just because he was not fit enough. That's as opposed to you being more talented than him. So that's how I looked at that. Now, I look at that midfield where Nico Gonzalez, Mateo Kovacic, Elliot Anderson. We're talking about the central midfielders who can play 6-8, kind of. They did not look good. Arsenal looked the better team. In terms of tactics and all that, they exploited that midfield. So, but I don't think Man City are going to press the panic button and go and try to buy everyone, because all the players that they are being linked to, they have been linked with them all throughout the summer. So it's not like yesterday's result is what instigates all this speculation and everything. So, and also I feel that with time, when they get to pick on the ideas of how Enzo Maresca wants them to play, etc., they'll adapt well and be a good team. Because I certainly don't think that Brad Erling Haaland is a bad player. We saw Ryan Chucky still has, it on his feet. Yes, he did not score, but you could see he can dribble. He can create the chances. Anton Semenyo looked off of it. Jeremy Doku, not at his best. Elliot Anderson, first time playing in Manchester City colours. So Mateo Kovacic spent most of last season out through injury. So, I mean, there's bound to be gaps in there. So I am not getting too carried away about their performance to say that it's going to cause them to have a bad season. However, what could affect them to have a bad season would say, for example, how a set of bad results causes players to lose their confidence and then end up not performing well, as opposed to them literally losing their talent, kind of thing. That's how I look at it. But let's see what you guys are sharing in the comment section. It wasn't about the result for me. It was the performance. That I agree with you. With you. That, okay, even the performance in itself was not good enough. Far from it. But for me, my interpretation of it was, let's say you had to put their fitness on a weighing scale. It almost felt like Arsenal were, let's say, at 80%, and Manchester City were operating at around 60-65% kind of fitness level. But Erling Haaland, like I said, he had only returned, I think, to the camp a couple of days before the game. And in fact, my expectation was not for him to start the game. But maybe Enzo Maresca said, he's a big player, big game player, let me just throw him in there. And that's not to take anything away from the Arsenal players in terms of how they dealt with the threat of Haaland, but that's what it felt like. Phil Foden, who kind of wasn't at his absolute best last season. Again, we saw him try, but was it good enough? Not to the Phil Foden that we know is capable of. So then Nando says, I don't think Man City are panicking. It wasn't about the result for me. It was about the performance. Man City are not lacking in many aspects, as people speculate. Why are players out of position? Why is Kovacic playing? Why is he playing? Because he's fit and available to play. Now, remember, and I don't think he was playing out of position. I don't think playing Kovacic in central midfield is playing him out of position. Today, you have so many players, central midfielders, who can play as a 6 and as an 8. Therefore, when you see any of those players being chosen to play, so for example, Elliot Anderson was playing on, I think, on the right side. Was it on the right-hand side of the central midfield as the 8? Then you have Kovacic sitting in, and then you had your Foden trying to be the architect of that, the creative player in there. And then you had your Jeremy Doku and Antoine Semenyo to the wings, and Haaland leading the lines. So this is a pair of players that has never played before. So together. So therefore, the chemistry was not there. They just did not have it. But if they play a chunk of games together, they are going to build that chemistry. They're going to realize, okay, this one is good at this. When they move, they make that move. I need to be making this move and have an overall understanding of each other. That's going to take a lot of work on the training ground before it translates into what we could see as a fruitful result on the pitch in an actual match day setting. Okay, Manchester City have panicked before. Remember, then January wins, whether they bought Mamush and Nico. Yeah, okay. They have been in that position before where they made, because they brought in Kushanov, they brought in Omar Mamush, they brought in Victor Reis, they brought in Nico Gonzalez from, FC Porto. Yeah, but you see, Manchester City have always reacted to their situation in the sense of we have lost this set of players, we need to replace them. Or we have lost these players to injury, we need to react. You remember what they did last campaign in January. They felt that they did not have enough with it. They went for Antoine Semenyo. They felt, Joško Vardiol was out through an extended injury with a fracture. I think in his either fibia or tibia, whatever one of the two is right. And that's how they brought in Mark Guehi, So they sort of assess and say, instead of waiting for this player to return, we are better off doing this in this particular moment because of the ambitions they have. Remember, Man City is not a team that is trying to participate. They're a team that are built to compete, to try and compete at every earliest opportunity and try to win. So even when they've been in this period of transition, because you go back to a couple of years when they've gone on losing all their star players. Riyad Mahrez is gone, Ilkay Gundogan is gone, now Bernardo Silva is gone, John Stones is gone, Kyle Walker is gone, Raheem Sterling left a good while ago. You look at Nathan Ake is gone, Manela Kanji, like Ederson Morales, Santana, Stefan Ortega. All these players have gone. But so they've been in a period of a transition, and they continue to be in that period of transition. But they have not fallen off the wagon to say Man City are in the cleaners. Why? Because they had Pep Guardiola. Now, nothing epitomizes their transition than them transiting from Pep Guardiola to Enzo Maresca. That's the hallmark of their transition. Because with Pep Guardiola, there are certain sureties or assurances that you had about him, regardless. And also, forget not that Man City are the kind of team, if they bring a player and they feel the player is not working, they're not afraid to cut their losses and move you on or make a profit out of you. In any case, Tijani Wenda's transfer is that they have not always done it or been successful at doing it, because you have the likes of Calvin Phillips, who has, by the way, returned to Sheffield United for another season-long loan. But But they are always quick to make decisions that see the team continue to perform. I was surprised by seeing the introduction of Jack Grealish. Why? Because Jack Grealish is a player that they even left behind when they were going away for their Asian pre-season tour. I was a bit surprised or caught off guard when Rico Royce came on. He's a player that I had not seen in Manchester City colours. I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong, in a bit of a while, So a bit of a surprise there, So, but remember, part of it is also with the limitations of the FA or English football that you are encouraged to have as many as this, maybe 23, 25 players or even more. But then you can only take 18 to the match day. That's how on the Arsenal bench, you could not see Ethan Nwaneri, Gabriel Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus. All these were players that were left out. Okay, Mati says, when is the next live streaming? I need to know and prepare for it. Tomorrow morning at about 9:30. So guys, we're going away from 9 sharp because constantly, I'm also tired of apologizing to you because I catch myself off guard sometimes. So 9:30 and onwards for our morning shows. Okay, then I can see Leo says hi to you, Leo. Mariam says, why are you ignoring my comment, man? What comment did I ignore? The last comment you submitted, Mariam, was about Hamza Abdul Karim, the youngster, and you're saying he was good. I don't seem to remember missing any other comment from you. So, and then prior to that, you were telling me about the game between Al Ahly and Barcelona that is set to be played at 9 o'clock. So, correct me if I'm wrong, if I've missed any other comment. So, then Gam says, imagine if City gave a chance to their youth players, Palmer, Rogers, Trafford, Brahimi. Now, Manchester City have never had a problem giving youth players or young players time. They have never felt that. However, they do acknowledge that the amount of time that could be given to certain young players is never going to be as much for everybody. Because remember, at the start of this 2023-2024 campaign is when Man City lost Cole Palmer to Chelsea. Pep Guardiola did not want to sell him. He was. This is a player that had already been integrated in that squad. He was a Champions League winner with Man City. But Chelsea guaranteed more playing time. And indeed, they've given it to him more than Man City could promise at the time. Because Phil Foden had just had a stellar campaign. And therefore, no matter how good he was not going to justify dropping Phil Foden for him. But he was going to give him minutes. We've seen the likes of Oscar Bob. How many years? Rico Ruiz feels like he's been at Manchester City for the last, 4 years now? He's not a regular player, but he gets his time. So you mentioned James Trafford. James Trafford was signed as the #1 goalkeeper to replace Edison Morales Santana. Now, he's a very talented player. But to the level of Manchester City, he looked a bit half-baked. That's why, as soon as Gianluigi Donnarumma was available in the market, they signed him. And therefore, it's made him a de facto #2. He's not willing to wait around because Gianluigi Donnarumma is 26, coming on 27, around there. For a goalkeeper, he's going to be maybe the #1 for the next 7 years for Man City. And the next 7 years mean that James Trafford would be 30. So he's thinking to himself, if I have an opportunity to go somewhere and be #1, maybe I get to dethrone Jordan Pickford at the England national team as the #1 goalkeeper because he's that talented. Very good with his feet, very good shot stopper, but he's not without his flaws as a player. He has some mistakes because he's still a young player that is learning his trade. Majority of his experience playing game week in, week out has been with Burnley. Burnley is a championship / Premier League relegation team every time they've been in the Premier League. So you must also appreciate it in those realms. So for Pep Guardiola, he was always willing to give the youngsters time. Look at Nico O'Reilly. He's not an old player, but he's been given the opportunity. So he was always looking to give them opportunities. However, if you feel that you deserve more playing time and you're going to get it elsewhere, he had no problem letting you go. He had no problem letting you go. That's how I think Oscar Bob joined Fulham. Is it? I think Fulham. Yes. I stand to be corrected if I'm mistaken, but that's how it goes out. You say Rico Rose is not good in my opinion, but okay, that's your opinion. Now, Morgan Rogers did not, I don't think he even made the senior debut for Manchester City before he went to Middlesbrough. So he goes to Middlesbrough, has a short stint in there, impresses, catches the attention of Aston Villa, who signed him in, I think, January 2024, and the rest is history. 2.5 years later, he's caught the attention of big clubs, just paid top dollar for him. Aston Villa making 100 million quid as profit off of that. So look at, there's so many examples. Manchester United have a player called Shia Lancey. He's shown signs of brilliance. But is he good enough to start? Maybe. But the question is, who do you drop to accommodate that brilliant young player? You know, we oftentimes look at the example of Barcelona, giving youngsters an opportunity to shine. But remember, Barcelona were forced into that situation. It's not like they woke up and they were like, oh, high and mighty, we're going to have a reliance on young players. No, they've always been good with giving young players an opportunity. But they're also young players that have left Barcelona without being given sufficient opportunity. Go back to the years of Ibrahim Afellay, Bojan Kakic, go back to Ricky Puig, and a couple of others. But when they had their financial struggles, that time when Xavi Hernandez walks into that Barcelona team, literally, their only go-to was to go and sign, to go and get those youngsters from the academy. Good enough for them, they've worked out well, So let's look at it in that perspective as well. Where are you? Where am I? Gam, is that question meant for me? I'm from Kampala, Uganda, in case you need a reminder. How old are you, Robert? Not at liberty to say with the exactness, but I'm on my 3rd floor. Rico Rose, okay, I think I read that. Archie Morrison is back with us. It's been a minute, Archie Morrison. I hope you're doing okay. You say hi. Mariam says hi. Okay, so there's that. Let's move on to the other final topic of the evening. Todd Boehly and Mark Walter to sell Chelsea stake. Now, Chelsea have 3 key known partners. They have Todd Boehly, they have Mark Walter, who is more or less a silent partner, and then they have Big Dad Egbadi and Clear Lake. So that's the group that bought Chelsea in 2022 from Romano Abramovich. Now, according to Ben Jacobs of TalkSport, he says Todd Boehly and Mark Walter are in talks to sell their Chelsea shares to Clear Lake. Now, apparently the pair value their stake in Chelsea north of £5 billion. Remember, Chelsea was acquired for, I think, a little over £4 billion, if not just £4 billion. Now, I don't know what their stake really is, because this was a bit of a breaking story. I had not had the chance to dig so deep into it, and perhaps we'll get more of it in the morning. But £5 billion, that's almost as if to suggest that they own the entire club by themselves. Anyways, so we'll wait to hear more about the story. But then, apparently, Mark Walter has an urgency to sell assets, while Todd Boehly still has some time until he steps down, or until because he's the chairman of the team. So he has some time to him. That's expected to be next summer, when he's expected to relinquish that position as chairman. So I think, I don't know, it's not the first time I'm hearing of these rumors that these guys are looking to sell. It's not the first time. I think they are done with the project and they want to move on to something else. I don't know if they are, in their perspective, they need to go and buy another club or they look to go and do something else. I can see Gam is saying £5 billion. Yeah, that's according to reports. But earlier on, you're saying, but Barcelona have always given youth a chance. I think the ones that left were never good enough. Look at Bojan. I don't think Bojan was not good enough. Guys, you know, many of the youngsters that came through during the time of Sergio Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, Lionel Messi, where were you going to play? Where were you going to play? Charles Puyol was in that defense. You know, Shakira's ex-husband, Gerard Piqué, was in there. I mean, Yaya Toure was struggling to get playing time in that team. That team that had Eric Abidal, Dani Alves. So, sometimes it's just not that you're not good enough to play. The question is, who are you looking to unseat? Because oftentimes, the player you fail to unseat is better than you. It's just that simple. You know, Arsenal have always been a team that gives youngsters opportunities. But some fail to cut it. Some can just not unseat the existing player. So, that's how they get, laid off elsewhere. And they try their luck in a different direction. But also remember, the success rate, by the way, of young players is not so high. It's not so high. We've heard of these academy players that have always been huge prospects to the extent of the clubs that they've been at. But once they came out of that, they've not lived to that actual bidding. Maybe for some, there's still room for progress. Look at Omari Hudson. Is he as good as advertised at Nottingham Forest? You don't think that his progress has gone according to plan. Aside from Marcus Rashford, remind me of the last time Manchester United pulled out a player of their academy and he was elite. And you thought that he was elite. So you must be quite a special talent. You must be quite a special talent, by the way. Go to Chelsea. They're signing so many young players, or have signed so many young players. You could almost be forced to think that they do not have an academy. But they do. They do. Has it stopped producing? I certainly don't think so, because Riongo Moha came from the Chelsea Academy. Michael Olise, Jamal Musiala all had their stints there. You know, they've gone on and thrived elsewhere. But at the time of their coming through, were they really, really going to get an opportunity at Chelsea? Because just sometimes it's, I'll give you another example. Look at Marc-Andre ter Stegen, very good goalkeeper. The bad thing for him was growing up in the same era as Manuel Neuer, because as good as he was with Barcelona, Marc-Andre ter Stegen, he was never going to unseat Manuel Neuer in the face of the German national team as the #1 goalkeeper. So there's also that bit of a scenario. It is true, and I agree with you, that in some cases, some clubs have not given these young players enough playing time or have not trusted them enough. But remember, the ambitions of big clubs, they have little margin for error. Little margin for error. For Barcelona, the era I'm talking about, it was almost a forced kind of thing. Like they had their backs against the wall and they had to live with that. But at the time, if you ask down in them, they would have rather gotten the money and gone out there and signed better players. But they had to struggle through that period. Remember when they ended up qualifying for Europa League and missing out on Champions League? They were not where they wanted to be. Circumstances had led them there. They did not want to lose Lionel Messi. Finances forced them to lose him. You know? So I'll give you an example. A lot of people will advocate, let's say, Arsenal give the likes of Max Dorman more playing time. Maybe deservedly so. But remember, when you find yourself primed to win silverware, oftentimes you have very little room in terms of margin for error, because a youngster, as good as they are the kind of key players that will cost you points sometimes, depending on where they play. Arsene Wenger was quite honest about that. He said, the price you pay with playing with young players that are not experienced is that they are going to cost you points. Play them in midfield, play them in defense, it's going to cost you. Arsenal have a youngster called Mali Salmon. Looks brilliant. Only 16 years of age. As we speak, there's been all lots of speculation linking Arsenal with a potential move for a centre back. They've looked at Joel Questa, they've looked at Ezri Konsa, and I don't know who else. But they have a youngster in there. Is it due to a lack of trust that he cannot come in and cut it? Or they just do not want to put the pressure on the kid? Or they believe he's the kind of player that is really, really good, but at one point he could cost you. Look at Christian Mosquera. Brilliant. He was a starter all through and through at Valencia. But look at what the stakes are for Valencia, or were for him at his time during Valencia, and what they are for Arsenal at the moment. So sometimes players come at different stages of projects, and sometimes it makes their integration a bit hard. But I don't think it's that teams innately do not want to give youngsters an opportunity. Southampton would be more willing to give a youngster an opportunity because the stakes for them are not that high as compared to a Manchester United or a Man City. So that's a bit of context to it that I can say about that. But yeah, Todd Boehly and his partner, Mark Walter, are looking to sell their stake in Chelsea. Anyways, okay. Ineos are concerning me. Hi, United Ward 10. You've joined us at almost the back end of this one. But I was there thinking to myself, if Manchester City are willing to pay close to 100 million euros, if not that, for Ayyoub Bouaddi, and then retain interest in Enzo Fernandez, what should that tell us of United Road 10? Not just yet United Road 10. Hang around for a bit. What should that tell us about Manchester United? And is it a lack of ambition? Is it them trying to outsmart the market? Is it them knowing better than we do? What is not really happening? Because Manchester United are not Aston Villa. They are not Newcastle. So, no matter how strong the wind blows, one of the teams you expect to remain standing, Manchester United ought to be one of those. And I don't know. I remain hopeful that Man United are going to make what passes for a marquee signing in this transfer window. I don't think they are satisfied with the set of midfielders that they have without adding any extra body. I don't know if they are still assessing the options. I don't know if they are waiting towards the tail end of the window to make something happen. I've not given up hope on them in pursuing that. But looking at it from a Manchester United fan's perspective, when you look at how teams that are already arguably appear stronger than you on paper are behaving, it must get you concerned to say, what are we doing? Or is our team good enough that it doesn't need any additions? It's very rare, even for title-winning teams, not to add an extra player. So, if the league champions are trying to strengthen themselves, if the league runners-up are trying to strengthen themselves, yes, they've lost players. The context may be a bit different, but still, if Chelsea, who finished 10th, and yet we thought they had a good squad, but them finishing 10th was more with the challenges of their managerial changes and etc. Not that they would have finished above Manchester United had they had the stability. It's not what I'm trying to point out. But the way they have approached the market almost feels like they've entered into a total rebuild of some sort. So, Man United, last summer, excellently executed. You worked on that forward line. Matthias Cunha, Brani Mbeumo, Benjamin Sesko. The goalkeeping position, you looked over there and said, Andre Onana, good is not good enough. We need better. Seni Lomans comes in. That's well and good. When you go back to the summer before, which was the last transfer window of Eric Ten Hag, Nusa Mazoroi, Matthias De Ligt, Manuel Ugarte, Lenny Yoro. Looks like the focus was on the back line. So that was sorted. So in the grand scheme of things, this summer was meant to be Manchester United's big summer for the midfield. They've spent some money there, but good is not good enough. Because is Andre Santos going to be as good consistently, or he will need support? So the question marks over how Manchester United have behaved in this window. And the jury is still out there. We can only hope and wait to see what they will look to do. You say we need 2 to 3 more signings. I can't understand it. Adam Wharton and Lewis Hall are there. And again, Man United are like if you're a man out there, you could be even married, or you may not be married. But when Ali Shakiz knocks at your door, it's a different knock. When Prime Kelly Laurent knocks at your door, when Beyonce knocks at your door, it's a different knock. So Manchester United, Beyonce, and Ali Shakiz, Rihanna, when they knock on your door, it's going to be a different knock. You got to have your head turned. So it's not like these players are too tight contractually to their clubs that Manchester United cannot price them away. In other words, Man United are that big. They just need to dangle a Hail Mary. And then the player could even apply the pressure on the other side. Come on, guys. If a good offer comes, please let me go. That you get that sort of thing, So, yeah. Excuse the example if you find it unworthy, but that's how big Man United are. So you say, I bet you they are lining some stupid commercial signing this week out of our first home game. That will make me very angry. We need football signings, not commercial signings. I don't think Man United can disabuse itself of commercial signings. They have that habit. Because remember, by the way, deep down, I've said this, no matter how innately, as football fans, we want our teams to win in terms of winning trophies, because that's, as fans, that's what makes us really, really happy. But let's not ever forget that the owners of these clubs, what makes them happy is the balance sheet, and the trophies are a cherry on top. Some people are in it for the bragging rights of, I'll give you an example. Romano Abramovich. I always thought he was in for the bragging rights, and the balance sheet came second to the bragging rights. I want my team to be big, to be winning. Champions League, Premier League, all the major titles. I want them to be winning. The balance sheet was second to that. When it comes to Manchester United, under the Glazers, especially in the post-Sir Alex Ferguson era, it has felt that the balance sheet comes first and then trophies follow. So, as fans, we ought to understand that, or in that respect. Profiles for the system, not names. Okay, 100%. Ineos out if we do not get 2 good signings in the next 2 weeks. How unfortunate. Roman was one kind. So, yeah, in football, you have those kind of owners who say, I want to do everything it takes to win. I want to do everything it takes to win. And then there are those who say, yeah, we will do whatever it takes to win, but that balance sheet, we must be keen on it. How does it look like? And remember, when Sir Jim Ratcliffe came in, he said a lot was going wrong financially. He needed to redirect the Manchester United ship. That's why they've had to lay off so many employees. They had to take away breakfast for players and coaching staff, or quality essential workers in a way. I mean, even bans, Come on, Man United. A burger? Like, is it called a burger or a bagel? Whatever it is called, you know? As in a small sandwich? Was it too expensive for Manchester United? Anyway, anyways. So I understand laying off some players, sorry, some employees to say this is a redundant position or a duplication of roles here and there. I understand that. But when it came to the welfare of those players, sorry, of those employees, I was like, come on, Man United, you're too big to be saving, £1 on somebody's meal a day, like literally. Then there was a fund that was set up to help former Manchester United players, I think, who played in many years gone by. And that fund, Manchester United, were contributing about £40,000, I think, a year or something. And he put that away. And I was thinking to myself, come on. I remember he was having an interview, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, with, I think, Gary Neville, and he was saying to him, at least as a club, organize a dinner where, Manchester United's rich fans can, maybe buy a sign or, jersey or Bruno Fernandes, or you can auction off something, or players can be part of it. And then you raise that 40 grand and, it stays on. It may not be directly out of the pocket of the club, but you bring these funds that are wealthy enough or rich enough to contribute to this worthy cause, and you carry it on as a club, as opposed to saying, no, we are out of it. I mean, it's 40 grand. It's 40 grand. Yes, I know Manchester United are in debt as an institution, but I mean, even the world superpower in the USA has debt. So what? They're not going to collapse tomorrow because they are in debt. So, he painted that sort of dire situation, and yet the Glazers were making money. So it's not like Man United are not making money. In fact, there's very few clubs that are making more money than Manchester United, even in their days of not winning. Because Manchester United have a very, very big global brand and fan base that is always buying their club merchandise. So they make a lot of money out of club merchandising. Even at the time when you think, they've been on and off of it. They'll pick up a cup trophy here and there. But when it comes to the money coming in, yes, I know they owe debt in terms of they've made losses on some expensive transfers of players. They've made losses on they are in debt on transfers that they made that they've not yet cleared off. It happens with all teams, because when you buy a player for £100 million, you commit to pay maybe 20 or 30 as the first payment, and then the other is spread over a given period of time. That's completely understandable. And so you rely on incoming income to service. That's all understandable. But when it comes to brand deals and sponsorships, they remain one of the big brands. Look at Chelsea. They've been fighting tooth and nail to get the right value for their shirt sponsor. That's why they keep picking out somebody that comes in half a season and But Man United keep making the money. So I don't think 40 grand was too big to part ways with for Man United. But yes, I understand Sir Jim Ratcliffe is trying to be too frugal. But I mean, let's not put Manchester United to the level of Ipswich Town. That's, anyways, we'll leave that at that. But United need a marquee signing. I don't know who that player is going to be, but they need somebody in there. Okay, it does not necessarily have to be £100 million player for me, but he has to be the kind of player that communicates the hallmark of Manchester United's midfield rebuild. Because whereas Andre Santos is that good player and he's not cost £100 million, but I feel that an extra body to him, because Yuri Tillemans is 29, and tomorrow or 3-4 years time, it's going to be 33, 34. So Kobe Mainu, and by the way, Andre Santos is a number 8. So is Kobe Mainu. So is Yuri Tillemans. So the big question actually is, who is Casemiro's actual replacement? Forget that this player can also play in that position. Forget that for now we'll be using Andre Santos in that position. Who is his replacement? Luke Shaw is not becoming younger. I mean, for the back line, okay, I can understand Man United thinking to themselves, okay, we've retained Harry Maguire for one extra year with the possibility to renew. We have a youngster in Aiden Heaven. We have Lenny Yoro, still young. Matthias Dedit is not old. And you look at it in that perspective. I can sort of understand. But here in the midfield here, that's where I have concerns because Manuel Ugarte is injured. And even before injury, they were going to sell him. Okay, even if they were not going to sell him, we know that he's not good enough to be a starter at Manchester United. Unless you want to see a Manchester United that is finishing 8th, possibly lower than that kind of thing, you get. So, I don't know. And I remember so many times Gary Neville questioning the transfer policies of certain clubs. Is he questioning the one of Manchester United this time around? Because it's one thing, because I know transfers are a gamble. It's one thing to buy a player and they do not work out. But it's a whole different story if you do not even try to bring in that player. Because I'm sure Manchester United fans are okay if they say, okay, we bought Adam Wharton quite expensively. It has not worked out. We need to count our losses and move on and find somebody new. But that lack of show of intent to do it in the first place is what will rub Manchester United fans the wrong way. Really. That's how I look at it. Okay, you say, and then there is this Bruno obsession too, as things stand in terms of our last lineup versus AC Milan and lack of signings. We might not finish top 4. Oh, wow. That's coming from United brought 10. I feel now the objective view is coming out. Forget the passionate United fan that thinks that the closest competition that Arsenal will have to a league title, which they could turn out to be. But I can see the objectivity with which you look at that in the squad assessment. We refuse to move on from Bruno, Shaw, and Maguire. Again, it's infuriating. Okay. My prediction last week were based on the lineup that had Zaxi, Yoro, Amas, Harry. By the way, I've seen reports linking Harry Amas with a potential move away from Man United, that 19-year-old. But let's wait and see. And I thought we'll have more players in. Okay, Carrick doesn't have the balls to drop Bruno. So I think depending on how Bruno performs, he will, because if he fails to perform, there will come a point where he says, I think I need to sit him out, Because sometimes, even for good players, you need to bench them for them to wake up and, realize that they need to get back to their absolute best. The last thing Man United want is Bruno Fernandes to sit in some form of comfort zone and say, like, I'm everything United are, and therefore, without me, they are not good enough. Therefore, I'm the first player on the clean sheet, whether I am on form or off form. United need to be in that sort of area where they say, yeah, we have the luxury of choice. If you're not delivering, yeah, you'll sit out the next 3-4 games and until you pick up the pace again, kind of thing. Or somebody is there to provide sufficient competition for you. You see Calodalo. Calodalo is an old goalkeeper, but I don't think Sonny Lomans is going to, be comforting himself to say, I have my number 1 position locked in, because Calodalo was number 1 at Leeds United. Now, I understand different levels to this thing, but you remember Sonny Lomans, you're a young goalkeeper, so the club could easily wake up and say, looks like you still have a lot to learn. Maybe learn from Calodalo. He's going to be our number 1. So, in other words, he's going to give him that sort of competition that will keep him on his toes to give his absolute best week in, week out. The question is, who is going to be doing that? The question is, who is going to be doing that for Luke Shaw? But more importantly, for Luke Shaw, it has to be, the player must be there that United are prepared to transition with. Forget the fact that Nusa Mazori can play there. Diego Leon, I feel he's too young. I don't know. I don't know if anybody has a fair assessment of him. I know he was playing with the reserves or academy level because he's a youngster. The kid that you bought from Paraguay last summer. How is his progress? Has he been part of preseason? And if he has been, how has he looked? You know, Dallo was at Leeds. Didn't realize. Yeah, he was. He was at Leeds United. Carlo Dallo. So yeah, United need to look at themselves in that sort of realm. But yeah, I believe there's a lot that they need to do to get themselves right and ready for next season, because they are Man United. They are Man United. We're talking about a team that has to deliver. Like I've already said, United are not expected to just participate. They are expected to compete. They are expected to compete. What's the situation with Lewis Kelly now? Is he currently a starter, or Arteta trying to appease him until the window shuts only? Now, to be fair, he's not been trying to appease him. It's just a situation he's found himself in, because his preferred midfield starters had all been at the World Cup and arrived back late. Because you had Martin Zubimendi, Spain reached the final. You had Declan Rice, England reached the third place playoff. So they had extended play. So they had extended holidays. Therefore, Lewis Kelly was the only one available. And bearing in mind that last season, he concluded the season really, really well, it felt like a natural fit, you know? So that's why he played him. And I think, I don't think that trend may change so much at the start of the season. Why? Because in my humble opinion, if you're going to be a good squad manager, and you, Mikel Arteta, you're trying to improve on your squad management, I don't believe that being quick to throw back Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi back into the team is what you need at the start of the season when you're starting with Coventry at home. I understand if, I mean, even if it is Aston Villa, even if it is Chelsea, because you're talking about a player that you trusted enough to start in a Champions League final. I don't think Arsenal have had a bigger game than that in recent times. So, if you trusted him well enough to start in that game, it means he's capable of starting in any other game. So, as somebody that is trying to improve his squad management, you'll be saying to yourself, okay, Declan Rice, you played a lot of minutes last season. Yes, we're going to ease you back in so that you maintain your fitness and competitive level, but you're not going to be starting. You come in maybe after 65 minutes, after 60 minutes, or even after 70 minutes, that sort of thing. Martin Zubimendi, sort of relax a bit. Don't feel under too much pressure. It is going to be Lewis Kelly, Bruno Guimaraes, alongside Martin Odegaard, that will be starting. Why? Odegaard did not play too many games last season because he was in and out through injury. And then you take it from there. But also, as you offer that to Odegaard, you know that you're easing in Eberechi Eze back in, like that. So it's not really kind of, trying to appease him. But I think even Lewis Kelly knows deep down that, yeah, right now, I'm in a good moment. For as long as I'm selected to play, I'll try to give it my best. But he's always looking over his shoulder because he knows at any one point he's going to get dropped. Not because he's not good enough, but because in the manager's assessment or what he may have seen in training, he's thinking, okay, I'm approaching this opponent. I think, Skelly, you're going to sit this one out, you know? So in that sort of situation. But he's the kind of player that any club, based on what they've seen at the back end of last season and at the start of this season, would be really eager to have, or impressed to have, or lucky to have, for as long as they can manage his progression really well. So yeah, I hope we can try to get Lewis Kelly done. I saw thingy, Mark Colbridge, saying Rio Ferdinand had given him the kiss of death. In other words, whatever Rio Ferdinand recommends, the club should never do because it turns out to be horribly wrong. And he was saying Man United shouldn't be signing a player simply because he's versatile, that he can play left back, midfield. We need a midfielder. Like, we need somebody. Rest assured, that's the role they play. Now, I find a flaw in that argument. Why? Because look at Declan Rice, for example. Arsenal bought Declan Rice from West Ham as a number 6. We're talking about a guy that had played central midfield, like holding midfield. and then previously as a centre back, by the way. So if he was adaptive enough to play centre back and central midfield, does that not make him good enough for midfield? But then Arsenal brought him in and have predominantly used him as a number 8. So almost a different position. So, I mean, it will be to the prerogative of Manchester United to use him as they see fit. Because in signing Miles Lewis-Kelly, you shoot two birds with one stone. That if on a day, if we do not have Luke Shaw, we are going to be forced into a situation, if need be, let's say we do not have Luke Shaw, we do not have Nusa Mazorui, Lewis-Kelly can play our left back. But in our view, he's a midfielder through and through. But if push comes to shove, we'll have to use him in that role. So it's something that came out of necessity. It's not that Manchester City woke up and said, Alexander Zinchenko is a left back. No. They assessed the player, he had good technical qualities, and said, since there is no gap for him to constantly play in midfield, I think he can help us. Something for Miles Lewis-Kelly. He's been developed from the academy as a central midfielder. But somebody that Mikel Arteta identified with his coaching staff, yeah, he's a midfielder, but I think he can help us at left back. And he executed the role. But deep down, even the player prefers to play in central midfield, So that's how I would look at it. Okay, Pedri, over there, you do not sound desperate to keep him low. No. I'm not speaking as an Arsenal fan. The challenge is United, when we're discussing things to do with Man United, you give me the heart of an Arsenal fan. But I'm trying to discuss the situation on its merits and how United should be looking at it, or how I would be looking at it, So disabuse yourself of the hat that I wear when I'm away from this channel. I try not to wear that. Actually, off of here, I go in TikTok spaces and discuss football. A lot of people do not know what team I support. Why? Because when I'm given an opportunity to speak, I speak about all teams with the best level of objectivity that my mind can offer me. So when you put it back on the side of Arsenal, like Arsenal would not want to lose a player like that. In fact, it would be terrible for them to lose that kind of player, unless for an undeniable offer. Because sometimes it's like having, I don't know if you guys have, anyway, I'm sure you know somebody somewhere that has that vintage car, something that is a car that is really, really good, that speaks of a certain tradition or a certain era, and they wouldn't really let it go for anything. But one day, if somebody comes with an undeniable offer, they could be forced to sell. So Arsenal must look at themselves in that sort of sense to say, look here, we bring out so many players out of the academy, but not so many come to this level and cut it. Therefore, we have a good player on our hands, and we are not looking to sell the player. But if an undeniable offer comes, we'll cash in and say, okay, fair enough, this money is good, we cannot let it go. Because remember, because it's an academy player, on their books, it is pure profit. It will be pure profit, sort of, kind of. And I remember saying, if you're Manchester United, the pitch you'll be making, you'll be saying, look here, Miles Lewis-Kelly, come play for us. You're going to be our starting central midfielder. That number is yours to take. For as long as you're good enough to play week in, week out, that number is going to be yours. We're going to give you, of course, improved wages compared to what Arsenal are currently giving you. And, we are back in the Champions League. Manchester is a good city, good place to stay. They can make a good pitch. And yes, I understand he's Arsenal all through and through. He's come through the academy. The love is there for the Arsenal. But in terms of guaranteeing your future progress in your development, your career, I mean, they managed to convince Aiden Heaven, he came from Arsenal. They managed to convince Chido Martin Obi, he came from Arsenal. So they've done it before. They just need to have the cogence to go back to the table and say, okay, this time around, we're trying to get a player that is under contract with Arsenal. Make a good pitch on the player side. If you have the green light on the player side, then go into discussions with Arsenal and say, okay, what is it going to take? So I saw I saw Rio Ferdinand talking about 60, 70 million pounds. I don't know if that is his worth, but like I said, if an undeniable offer came to the table, I think Arsenal could be turned. Arsenal fans will not like it that the club has cashed in on the player, but like I said, these clubs are owned by individuals who, at the end of the day, look at that balance sheet. And remember, Arsenal are not really, really good at selling players. They're not really, really good at selling players. So if United came in with a good offer, he could possibly end up being Arsenal's most expensive sale, and the club could cash in. No matter how up in arms the fans will be, they will not care much. So, you say Eden Heaven has been a great signing. That's true. We should go for it. Okay, Pedro was saying, Robert Kesakos, what food would you like to try? Yes, now from Ray. Food. Anyways, I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know. It's not an easy question to answer. But maybe from the movies, I'll try Chinese, because it's so popular in movies that I wonder, what does Chinese look like? You know? Or have you guys seen those guys that prepare? I think mostly the Arabs and the Turkish. There's a way they prepare their meat, and it's literally falling off the bone. Like, and I'd want to test that. Anyways, jokes aside, Ashimi says, hello, sir. Hello to you too. I thought you said you are very attractive to Mr. Tribe. Jesus Christ, come on. Okay, fair enough. Okay. I can see you don't sound desperate to keep him. Okay, I think I read that. Mr. Tribe admitted he likes. What's that? Yeah, he had enough with cars. Yeah, you are very attractive, Tribe. You are very objective. Thank you, Gam. At least some people see that in me. They see the objectivity. But sometimes it is at the point of disagreement that people look at me with bias. When we disagree with people, I and Pedri disagreed at the back end of last season, and he disappeared on me. Anyways, okay. You see, I thought you said you're very attractive to Mr. Tribe. No, you said objective. Come on. Okay. Bro, this guy is not human. Anyways, so, but that's it for me. He's haunting me. Guys, it's been a fruitful discussion for the last 1 hour and 38 minutes. You know, today we came a quarter to the top of the hour. Oftentimes I come on late and you guys indulge me. So I decided today that time permitted me to come on 15 minutes early. So I decided to do it. But cheers to you all. Thank you for always choosing to support the Football Tribe UG channel. In spaces where I am not, where you're having your individual discussions about football, and you mention me or you mention the name of the channel as something that people can follow up on, I appreciate if it is something that you do. I'm always appreciative of your consistency, of your commitment, your time, your contribution to the discussion. Where I fall short, please find it within your hearts to forgive me. Sometimes words may fail me, but at least appreciate the spirit with which I come to try and deliver my perspective. Pedro says, Mr. Tribe, what did you want to be when you were younger? Did you want to be 40 years old talking about football? When I was younger, I wanted to be a priest. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I admired being a priest all through and through. That was my my first desire. Forget these childhood fantasies of I want to be a pilot today, I want to be an engineer tomorrow. Tomorrow you want to be a doctor. Forget that. I wanted to be a Catholic priest. Eventually, that one fell away. Then, but also during around the same time, growing up, I did admire people that presented on media, particularly radio presenters, like because they were behind closed doors, like you never saw these guys. You would admire people's voices, people's delivery of something, and you're like, how I wish I could also get the opportunity to sit behind the microphone somewhere in the studio. When you're very young, you think that somebody is inside your radio there speaking in the physical unit. Somebody is in there speaking. But then you learn with time that maybe that's not how it's done. But I admired, presenters. So, but of course, as you grow, your aspirations keep on changing depending on the environment you're within and all that. But the thing of wanting to be a priest, that stayed me for the longest of time. Then when I was given the opportunity to start writing sports news, that was sometime in midway 2014. That's when my passion for sport and grew even further. I always had it, but now that it was putting food on the table, at least, it wasn't paying much because at the time when I started out, I was earning less than I think I was earning close on to $50 in my first month, and then after 1 month I did well, so they put me to close on to $85. It was still less than $100, maybe $75, $80 there. So that's what was putting food on the table. So I got buried into writing sports news and stuff like that. But and during that time, I harbored aspirations of working on radio at some point, or even TV if the opportunity presented itself. Long story short, I've never gotten the opportunity. So then, because it came a point of time when the pay was not enough to sustain life, I ventured into other work. I left sport entirely. I went into digital marketing, social media management. At some point, I did casual work like painting. Predominantly painting, construction work, that sort of thing, just to keep life afloat. Then at the midway, along the way in 2023, that's when, but sport, this idea of sport kept on pulling me. So I'm like, why don't I resigned my job. As I told this story, by the part of this story, I told on the channel, there's a video of football tribe at 3 years. So I resigned from my job. My boss was asking, who is stealing you? Where are you going? I'm like, I don't have any other job that I'm running to. I'm simply going to go home to pursue my personal venture. And the personal venture was start a YouTube channel. God grants you the opportunity of the audience of strangers. You speak football to them. And that's what I do now. Because it does not put the food on the table, at least of yet, it's something primary to me, but I still do digital marketing and social media work and branding, sort of in the sense of writing company profiles, doing business cards and things like that. So yeah, that's the space within which I operate. But and I remember back in my campus days, university days, you'd interact with people about football, predominantly about the Premier League, because that's the most popular league within Uganda anyway. And by extension, of course, the other gigantic clubs, and people would tell you, like, I mean, how I wish you are working on radio. You look like you're cut out for this thing. But so in between spending time in other jobs, obviously you lose a bit of touch in terms of every day, not to keeping up with the sport in itself and everything that comes with it, because there's a lot of detail. But once you dive back in, you're quick to sort of learn on, start picking on things and take it from there. So that's the story for me, really. But yeah, I cannot say that right from the onset I envisioned to be sitting before my phone that has so many lines because I mean, it's almost giving up on me to be speaking sport to you guys. Okay, Pedro, you said Raymond Kangumba. Sorry, you said Raymond Kampala to humanity. Here we go. Deal ugly. Never too old to talk about football as work. It's the beautiful game. True, true. Or interesting. How much bread do you make from YouTube? I've never made a penny. In terms of, I've received super chats from some of you people as people that have subscribed for memberships. But the threshold is $100 to get your first payment. I've never made $100. That's the honest bit of it. So I've never made, in other words, I've never put a penny in my pocket out of the channel. So, but we are still on that trajectory of growth. We have reached the monetization stage, but in terms of numbers that are bringing in the revenue, we're just not yet there to that threshold. But at least the options are there. You can be a member for as low as $0.5, etc., whichever package you choose. You can super chat me. That's when you find an ad on a particular video, don't skip the ad, that sort of thing. So, but I've yet to make the money out of it. Okay, Mr. Tribe, if you want a cup of coffee, please, meow. Jesus Christ. The number of things Pedro has told me to say for super chat, and it's never come anyway, out of this world. Okay, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? It's a question somebody, Mariam, asked already, and I said, I will not say with absolute specificity, but I'll tell you I'm on the third floor. Football TV is all about connections. I've never had the connections, but maybe, God willing, if God grants me the opportunity to be on TV, to be on radio somewhere, I'll go do it. It's that sort of passion for me. I'll immerse myself into knowing other things and go to, I guess, 43. I'm not yet on the fourth floor, not yet there. Still quite a bit of a long way to get there. But, I'm not strangers in part of the best football family on earth, led by Daddy Tribe. No, when I say strangers, I meant that people I've never interacted with. So, like I say, the channel has given me the opportunity to interact with people from far and beyond. Majority of the people that consistently feature on this channel are not even Ugandans, So it's people like you from different parts of the world that give me the courage to keep going. There are Ugandans that support me, people that I interact with in different forums, but I'm very appreciative of even the wider world. I oftentimes make the reference to my colleagues from India. Most of them come onto the channel and they are not even football fans, but they see somebody that is passionate about what they're doing and they give you the time. They'll ask some questions about football, some will be not about football. There'll be odd questions and, you answer them to the best of your ability and they'll leave you a like, they'll subscribe to your channel and you go from there like that. Baby steps. Oh wow, third floor, maybe 39 years and 11 months. It could also be 31. It could also be 30 itself. So it could be anything. I know you're trying to bait me into saying something exact, but I'll not be precise. Can you shout out my very close friend, Geb Ich? Hi, Geb Ich. Greetings to you, wherever it is you are. Keep loving the channel. He is scared to comment. It's okay. Some people follow the conversation, but they never like, they never comment. But for as long as you're supporting in whichever way you can support, it's always appreciated. Anyways, guys, I hope I've answered your questions to the best of your satisfaction. But we have fallen short. Kindly indulge me. Allow me wish you a blessed night because it's 34 minutes past the top of the hour of midnight here for me. He failed his exam today. He got disowned. He loves the tribe. Anyway, thank you, Pedri. Thank you, United Vote 10. Thank you, Gam. Thank you, Nando. Thank you, Mariam, Lara. Thank you so much. Who else we've had today in the conversation? There's somebody whose name is slipping away that I'm trying to look for. But I saw Archie Morrison. Thank you so much for having been part of the broadcast. I know then Sumi, something like that. Thank you so much for having been part of the discussion. Amati, always a pleasure to have you around. My brother Nando, always much appreciated. So until next time, guys, you've been such a wonderful audience. Lolo Pedri, you're a character. You know, he's quite a character. So sign out, guys. A pleasure. Until next time. Today, my dad got a chicken as a pet, but I don't know. So I didn't know, so I cooked it for dinner. Have a nice dinner. Bye-bye, guys.